So you're 25 years old, you just landed your first real job making $50,000 a year, and every financial expert on the internet is screaming at you to save 20% of your income. You dutifully open a high-yield savings account, watch that balance grow to $10,000, then $20,000, then $30,000, and meanwhile, your college roommate, who's been irresponsible with money, just bought a duplex, lives in half of it, rents out the other half, and somehow seems to be building more wealth than you. And you're sitting there thinking, wait, I did everything right. Why does it feel like I'm falling behind? Yeah, that's what we need to talk about today. My name is Buffet, and I spend way too much time thinking about why the conventional advice we give young people about saving is actually destroying their wealth building potential. If you're someone who's been told your whole life that saving money is the key to financial success, but you're watching your purchasing power erode while your friends who invested earlier are seeing exponential returns, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because here's the thing, and I know this sounds crazy, but saving early, in the traditional sense that most people understand it, can actually make you poorer. Not relatively poorer, not you could have been richer poorer, like actually genuinely mathematically poorer than if you had done almost anything else with that money. And before the comment section explodes, let me be crystal clear. I'm not saying don't save money. I'm saying that what most people call saving is actually just losing money in slow motion. And the younger you are when you make this mistake, the more catastrophically expensive it becomes. Look, we've all heard the advice. Pay yourself first, save for a rainy day, build an emergency fund. And yeah, some of that is solid, but here's what most people don't realize. There's a massive difference between saving and preserving wealth, an even bigger difference between preserving wealth and building wealth. Let me show you what I mean with some actual numbers, because this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say you're 23 years old in 2015. You get your first job out of college and you decide to be responsible. You're going to save $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. You put it in a savings account earning, let's be generous here, 1.5% interest annually. You do this religiously for 10 years. By 2025, you've deposited $60,000 of your own money. With that 1.5% interest compounded, you've got about $65,500 in your account. You look at that number and think, hey, I'm doing great. I've got 65 grand. Except you don't, because in 2015, the inflation rate was about 0.1%. Not bad. But then 2016 hits, 1.3%. Then 2017, 2.1%. 2018, 2.4%. You see where this is going. By the time we get to 2021, 2022, inflation is running at 7 to 9% annually. The average inflation rate over that 10-year period, about 3.2% per year. So let's do the actual math. The $60,000 you deposited over those 10 years, adjusted for inflation, needed to become about $80,000 just to maintain the same purchasing power. But you've only got $65,500. You didn't gain money, you lost approximately $14,500 in purchasing power. You spent 10 years diligently saving, and you're poorer than when you started. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but at least I didn't lose money in the stock market. At least I have something. And this is exactly the psychological trap that keeps people poor. Here's the thing about feeling safe. It's expensive, really expensive. There's this concept in behavioral economics called loss aversion, discovered by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Essentially, people feel the pain of losing money about twice as strongly as they feel the pleasure of gaining money. So we make irrational decisions to avoid losses, even when those decisions guarantee we'll end up with less money. A traditional savings account feels safe because the number goes up. You see $65,500 and your brain goes more than $65,000. Success. But your brain isn't adjusting for inflation. Your brain isn't calculating opportunity cost. Your brain is just seeing green numbers go up and feeling good. This is the same psychological mechanism that makes people buy lottery tickets, by the way. It feels like you're doing something. It feels like progress, but the math tells a completely different story. But wait, it gets so much worse because we haven't even talked about opportunity cost yet, and this is where the real damage happens. Let's take that same scenario. You're 23 in 2015 and you've got $500 to do something with. But instead of putting it in a savings account, you invest it in a simple S&P 500 index fund. Just boring, passive index investing. Nothing fancy. The S&P 500's average annual return from 2015 to 2025 about 12.5% per year. With that same $500 monthly contribution over 10 years with an average 12.5% annual return, you'd have approximately $115,000. Read that again. $115,000 versus $65,500. That's a $49,500 difference for the exact same effort, the exact same monthly contribution. The only difference is where you put the money. And here's what makes this absolutely devastating. You can never get those years back. This is what compound interest means. The money you invested in your early 20s has decades to grow. Every dollar you don't invest in your 20s is about $8 to $10 you won't have in your 60s. According to a 2024 study from the National Bureau of Economic Research, young Americans aged 22 to 30 have approximately 42% of their liquid savings in traditional savings accounts or checking accounts, earning less than 2% interest. That's not an emergency fund. That's not strategic liquidity. That's just money slowly dying. Let's talk about inflation for a second, because I don't think people really understand how insidious this is. Here's what most people don't realize. Inflation isn't just prices go up a little bit. Inflation is a systematic transfer of wealth from savers to borrowers, from the working class to asset owners. When you keep money in a traditional savings account during an inflationary period, you're literally giving away your purchasing power for free to nobody. It just evaporates. Let me give you a concrete example. In 2010, the median home price in the United States was about $221,000. In 2024, it's about $420,000. That's a 90% increase in 14 years. If you saved $50,000 in a savings account in 2010, earning a generous 1.5% annually, you'd have about $61,500 today. But that $50,000 down payment that would have gotten you a very nice house in 2010, today, that $61,500 barely covers 15% down on that same house. You saved money, you were responsible, you did what you were told, and now you're further from home ownership than when you started. This is the trap. This is what I mean when I say saving early can make you poorer. Now, before everyone loses their minds, let's address the elephant in the room, the emergency fund. Look, I'm not an idiot. You need liquid cash for emergencies. If your car breaks down, you can't pay the mechanic with shares of an index fund. I get it. But here's the thing. Most people are holding way too much in emergency funds, and they're keeping them in the wrong places. The standard advice is 6 months of expenses in a savings account. For someone making $50,000 a year with monthly expenses of $3,000, that's $18,000 just sitting there, earning nothing, losing value every day. Here's a better approach. Keep 1 month of expenses in a checking account, maybe 2 if you're really anxious. Keep another 3 months in a high-yield savings account or a money market fund. And I mean actually high yield, like 4 to 5%, not the 0.5% your traditional bank is offering. And then put everything else to work. Because here's what the financial industry doesn't want you to know. A taxable brokerage account invested in index funds is almost as liquid as a savings account. You can sell and have cash in your account in 2 business days. For most emergencies, that's fast enough. But won't the market go down? Couldn't I lose money right when I need it? Yeah, maybe. But you know what's guaranteed? The money in your savings account is definitely losing value every single day. With 100% certainty, you're choosing a guaranteed loss to avoid a possible loss. That's not rational. That's fear-based decision-making. Here's where this gets really twisted, and this is going to make some of you angry. There are people right now who have $20,000 in a savings account earning 1% interest, while simultaneously maintaining $15,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest. Let me say that again. They are losing 22% on 15,000 while gaining 1% on 20,000. The mental gymnastics required to convince yourself this makes sense are Olympic level. Why do people do this? Psychology. It feels good to see that savings account balance. It feels safe. It feels like you're being responsible. Meanwhile, they're hemorrhaging money on interest payments. A 2023 survey by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that roughly 38% of Americans with credit card debt also maintain savings accounts with balances exceeding their debt. These people are literally paying banks for the privilege of being poor. If you have high-interest debt and a savings account, you don't have savings. You have an expensive psychological security blanket. Let's talk about timing, because this is crucial. There's this idea that you should get stable first before you start investing. Terrible advice. Absolutely catastrophic for young people. Here's why. Compound interest is exponential, not linear. The difference between starting at 25 and starting at 35 isn't 10 years of returns. It's 10 years of compound returns. Let me show you. Person A starts investing $500 a month at age 25. They do this for 10 years until age 35, and then they stop. They never invest another dollar. They just let it grow. Person B waits. They get stable first. They start investing $500 a month at age 35 and continue until they're 65. 30 years of contributions versus person A's 10 years. Assuming a 10% average annual return, at age 65, person A has about $1.58 million. Person B has about $1.14 million. Person A invested $60,000 total. Person B invested $180,000 total. Person A still ends up with more. That's the power of starting early. And that's the cost of saving instead of investing when you're young. So what should you actually do? Here's the framework. First, distinguish between cash reserves and wealth building. They're not the same thing, and conflating them is killing your financial future. Cash reserves. 1 to 2 months of expenses in checking, 2 to 3 months in a genuine high-yield savings account. 4% or higher, or don't bother. That's it. That's all the savings you need. Everything else, invested. Second, understand the hierarchy of returns. Savings account, 1 to 2%, losing to inflation. High-yield savings, 4 to 5%, barely keeping pace with inflation. Bond index funds, 4 to 6%, slight real return. Stock index funds, 10 to 12% average over time, actual wealth building. Real estate varies wildly, but often 8 to 15% when you factor in appreciation, rental income, and leverage. Starting a business? Potentially unlimited, but also risky. You want your money in the highest category you can tolerate risk-wise. Third, embrace intelligent leverage. This is the thing that separates wealthy people from everyone else. Remember that roommate who bought the duplex? Let's say they put down $40,000 on a $200,000 property, rented half of it out for $1,500 a month, and their mortgage payment was $1,200 a month. They're living for free, the tenant is paying down their mortgage, and the property appreciates at 5% annually. In 10 years, that property is worth $320,000. They've paid down about $50,000 of principal, and they've essentially lived rent-free, saving about $150,000 in housing costs they would have paid otherwise. Their $40,000 turned into over $300,000 in value creation. Your $40,000 in a savings account turned into $43,000. This is why rich people borrow money and poor people save it. Leverage amplifies returns when you use it intelligently. Look, I know this is a lot, and I know it goes against everything your parents told you, everything your bank tells you, everything that feels safe. But here's what you need to understand. The financial advice that worked for your parents doesn't work anymore. Your parents could put money in a savings account in the 1980s and earn 8 to 12% interest. They could buy a house for 3 times their annual salary. They had pensions. They graduated college with minimal debt. That world is gone. In today's economy, playing it safe is the riskiest thing you can do. Inflation is higher, wages are stagnant relative to cost of living, and traditional savings accounts are essentially just holding areas where your money goes to slowly die. The mental shift you need to make is this: money that isn't growing faster than inflation is money you're losing. Every dollar in a traditional savings account beyond your actual emergency needs is a dollar you're paying for the illusion of safety. So, here's what you do, starting today. Step 1. Calculate your actual monthly expenses, not what you think they are. Actually track them. Step 2. Keep 1 month of expenses in checking, 2 to 3 months in a high-yield savings account, 4% or higher only, Ally, Marcus, or similar. Step 3. If you have high-interest debt, anything over 7%, pay that off before investing. This is a guaranteed return on your money. Step 4. Open a taxable brokerage account. Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, doesn't matter. Just do it. Step 5. Set up automatic monthly transfers to buy index funds. Start with something simple like VTI, Total U.S. Stock Market, or VOO, S&P 500. You can get fancy later. Right now, just get started. Step 6. Increase your contributions every time you get a raise. Don't inflate your lifestyle. Inflate your investments. Step 7. Educate yourself continuously. Learn about tax-advantaged accounts like 401k, IRA, HSA. Learn about asset allocation. Learn about real estate investing. But don't let learning be an excuse for not starting. The best time to start investing was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Here's the truth that nobody wants to tell you. Being good with money in 2025 doesn't mean being a good saver. It means being a good investor. The game has changed. The rules have changed. If you're playing by the old rules, you're going to lose. Your savings account isn't protecting you. It's quietly, invisibly, consistently making you poorer. And the younger you are, the more expensive this mistake becomes. I get it. Investing feels scary. The stock market goes down, things are volatile. But you know what's actually terrifying? Realizing at 50 that you did everything you were told, you saved diligently, you were responsible, and you're still nowhere near retirement. The wealthy know something that most people don't. Inflation is a tax on saving and a subsidy on investing. Every year you keep significant money in a traditional savings account is a year you're volunteering to pay that tax. Stop volunteering. If this video changed how you think about money, smash that subscribe button. Drop a comment below telling me what you're going to do differently starting today. And if you know someone who's making this mistake, and statistically you know several people, send them this video. It might be the most valuable 15 minutes they spend all year. My name is Buffett. I spend way too much time thinking about this stuff so you don't have to, and I'll see you in the next one. Now go make your money work for you instead of against you.